Starbucks just collapsed, and the reason isn't what you think. This isn't about bad coffee or new competitors. It's about the silent fallout of America's trade war. The same policies that were supposed to bring jobs back home are now shutting them down. Over 400 Starbucks stores across the United States are closing. Workers are being laid off. Investors are stunned. And behind every shuttered store, there's one clear winner: China. Because while Starbucks bleeds, China's Luckin coffee is exploding, opening thousands of new stores, and even stepping onto US soil. This isn't just a business story. It's a geopolitical shift happening in your morning cup. The collapse of Starbucks isn't about caffeine. It's about control. Let's break it down. Starbucks was never supposed to fail. For decades, it was a symbol of the American dream, a brand that sold not just coffee, but culture. From Times Square to Tokyo, the green mermaid logo meant one thing: American influence. But now, something's broken. Starbucks is closing more than 400 stores, not just in struggling malls or quiet towns, but in cities that once overflowed with customers. Workers report walking into shifts and being told their store won't reopen next week. Management calls it restructuring, but the truth is simpler. Starbucks can't afford to stay open. Behind the corporate spin lies a brutal reality. The cost of doing business in America has skyrocketed. Inflation, rising labor costs, and most importantly, tariffs. The tariffs that were supposed to protect American jobs are now crushing them. Trump's trade war didn't just hit China, it hit American supply chains. And Starbucks, a company that depends on global imports for everything from coffee beans to cups, is now paying the price. Coffee doesn't grow in America, not at scale. The US imports nearly all of its beans, mostly from Brazil, Colombia, and Vietnam. So when Trump slapped tariffs of 30%, 50%, even 100% on agricultural imports, Starbucks got slammed with costs it couldn't control. Let's put it in perspective. Brazilian coffee that once landed in US ports at $2 a pound now costs $4. Multiply that across millions of pounds, and you've got a financial disaster brewing in every cup. But the tariffs didn't stop there. Steel and aluminum? Tariffed. That means espresso machines, coffee filters, and even the metal framing in every store became more expensive. Wood for furniture? Packaging materials? Same story. Every supply chain link turned toxic. Starbucks tried to pass costs on to customers, but when your average latte is already $6, there's nowhere left to go. Customers started walking away. Sales dropped, margins shrank, and suddenly the American coffee empire wasn't so untouchable anymore. Now the human side. When Starbucks shuts down a store, it doesn't just close a coffee counter, it erases a small economic ecosystem. Baristas lose steady income, local suppliers lose contracts, truck drivers lose routes, cleaning crews, packaging plants, even nearby food vendors, all take the hit. It's a domino effect that runs deeper than most people realize. A single Starbucks can inject hundreds of thousands of dollars into a community each year. Now multiply that by 400 closures. That's millions in local wages and services gone, evaporated by trade policies that were sold as pro-American. Trump promised tariffs would bring jobs back. Instead, they're destroying them. And if a global giant like Starbucks can't survive this economic storm, what chance do small coffee shops, diners, or independent roasters have? Here's where the story gets global. When America shut its doors on imports, other nations didn't beg to come back. They simply moved on. Brazil started exporting more coffee to Europe, the Middle East, and especially to China, where demand is exploding. Vietnam and Colombia followed. While America made trade harder, China made it easier. Beijing signed long-term deals with coffee producers across the global south, locking in supply, cutting costs, and quietly building an empire. And into that empire stepped Luckin Coffee, a company once written off for accounting scandals, now reborn as China's homegrown Starbucks killer. In 2019, Luckin had 4,000 stores. Today, over 18,000, nearly double Starbucks' footprint in China. And now, they're expanding into the US. Yes, you heard that right. While Starbucks closes 400 American stores, Chinese coffee brands are opening on American soil, selling cheaper drinks made with beans that bypass US tariffs entirely. It's not just irony, it's strategy. While US companies drown in their own protectionism, Chinese firms are buying what's left: piece by piece. Starbucks once saw China as its golden market. At one point, it opened a new store every 15 hours there. But that era is ending. Luckin Coffee and other domestic rivals have undercut Starbucks prices by up to 40%. They deliver faster, adapt to local tastes, and ride on China's state-backed logistics systems. And the US tariffs that were supposed to hurt China, they've only made American imports look weaker and more expensive. So what happens next? Analysts estimate that Starbucks China, once worth over $10 billion, might soon be sold off to Chinese investors. That's not expansion, that's surrender. Every cup of Luckin coffee poured in Beijing or Shanghai isn't just caffeine, it's symbolic. It says China can replace America, even in industries once dominated by US culture. The same way Huawei replaced Apple in smartphones, or BYD replaced Tesla in EVs, Luckin is replacing Starbucks, one latte at a time. Starbucks' collapse isn't an isolated story, it's a warning. A glimpse into what happens when economic nationalism meets global dependence. Because Starbucks isn't just a coffee company, it's a microcosm of the US economy, dependent on foreign goods, global logistics, and affordable imports. You cannot build a domestic empire on imported foundations while waging a war against imports. That's the paradox America refuses to face. When tariffs raise costs, consumers suffer. When consumers pull back, businesses shrink. When businesses shrink, workers get laid off. And the political leaders who caused it all, they blame someone else. This is how economic collapse begins, not with panic, but with slow decay, one closed store at a time. Starbucks was built on a promise that America could sell lifestyle as much as product. That culture itself could be an export. But the world has changed. China doesn't just imitate Western brands anymore, it replaces them. Where Starbucks once symbolized global aspiration, Luckin now represents local pride. Where US tariffs create chaos, China's trade deals create stability. And while American workers wait for manufacturing jobs that never return, China builds new industries from scratch. The great irony is that Trump's tariffs didn't weaken China, they accelerated its rise. They gave Beijing the perfect opportunity to fill the gaps left behind by US retreat. Starbucks' downfall is just the beginning. Retail, manufacturing, logistics, they're all feeling the same pressure. If this trajectory continues, the US won't just lose coffee dominance, it'll lose the global economic narrative entirely. So let's recap. Starbucks is shutting down 400 stores. Tariffs and inflation crushed its margins. Workers are losing jobs. Communities are losing anchors. And China, the nation those tariffs were meant to weaken, is taking over the $119 billion global coffee industry. That's the real story. It's not about your morning latte. It's about what happens when political posturing collides with economic reality. It's about how one wrong trade policy can turn a global superpower into a market bystander. The next time you walk by an empty Starbucks, remember, it's not just a closed cafe, it's a symbol of a global shift in power. And China isn't just watching, it's already taking over. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell.